The year was 2147, and humanity had reached the zenith of its technological prowess. The Earth was no longer the only home for humans, colonies stretched across the solar system, and the dream of interstellar travel was within grasp. But with progress came challenges, and the greatest of these was the need for stronger, more resilient humans to survive the harsh environments of space. Dr. Alara Voss, a brilliant geneticist, had dedicated her life to pushing the boundaries of human potential. Her latest project, codenamed Apex, aimed to create a new breed of humans, stronger, faster, and more adaptable than ever before. The project was shrouded in secrecy, known only to a select few within the highest echelons of the scientific community. Alara's lab was a marvel of modern technology, filled with holographic displays, advanced genetic sequencers, and rows of cryogenic pods. Each pod contained a human subject, their bodies suspended in a state of stasis as their DNA was meticulously altered. But one subject was different, Subject 7, a man whose genetic code had shown unprecedented potential. As Alara monitored the progress of her subjects, she couldn't help but feel a growing fascination with Subject 7. His physical form was perfect, his muscles finely tuned, and his features strikingly handsome. But it was more than just his appearance, there was something about him that drew her in, something primal and irresistible. The day finally came when Subject 7 was ready to be awakened. Alara stood before his pod, her heart racing with anticipation. She initiated the awakening sequence, and the pod hissed as it released its occupant. The man inside stirred, his eyes fluttering open to reveal a piercing gaze that locked onto Alara's. "Welcome back," she said softly, her voice trembling with a mix of excitement and nervousness. The man stepped out of the pod, his movements fluid and confident. He looked around the lab, taking in his surroundings with a curious expression. Then his eyes returned to Alara, and a slow, knowing smile spread across his face. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice deep and resonant. "I'm Dr. Alara Voss," she replied, trying to maintain her composure. "I've been working on a project to enhance human capabilities, and you are the result of that work." The man nodded, as if he already knew. "And what is my purpose?" he asked, his gaze never leaving hers. Alara hesitated, unsure of how to answer. "Your purpose is to be the next step in human evolution," she said finally. "To go beyond the limits of what we thought was possible." The man stepped closer to her, his presence overwhelming. "And what about you, Dr. Voss?" he asked, his voice low and intimate. "What is your purpose?" Alara's breath caught in her throat as she felt the heat of his body radiating towards her. She had never been this close to a subject before, never felt this kind of connection. It was as if he could see right through her, into the very core of her being. I don't know," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. The man reached out, his hand brushing against her cheek. "Perhaps your purpose is to guide me," he said, his touch sending a shiver down her spine. "To show me what it means to be human." Alara's heart pounded in her chest as she looked into his eyes. She knew she should pull away, should maintain the professional distance that was expected of her. But she couldn't. There was something about him that called to her, something that made her want to surrender to the moment. "Perhaps," she whispered, her voice trembling with desire. And in that moment, as their eyes locked and their bodies drew closer, Alara knew that her life would never be the same. She had created something extraordinary, something that defied the limits of human potential. But she had also awakened something within herself, a passion, a longing, that she had never known before. As the man leaned in, his lips brushing against hers, Alara felt a surge of electricity course through her body. It was a kiss that spoke of promises yet to be fulfilled, of a future that was as uncertain as it was exhilarating. And as they stood there, lost in each other, the world outside the lab faded away. For Alara and Subject 7, there was only the here and now, and the infinite possibilities that lay ahead. The days that followed Subject 7's awakening were a whirlwind of activity. Alara spent every waking moment with him, guiding him through the complexities of human life. She taught him how to speak, how to interact with others, and how to navigate the world around him. But it was more than just a teacher-student relationship, there was a deep, unspoken connection between them that grew stronger with each passing day. Subject 7, who had taken the name Kale, was a quick learner. His enhanced intellect allowed him to absorb information at an astonishing rate, and his physical abilities were beyond anything Alara had ever seen. But it was his emotional depth that surprised her the most. Despite being a product of genetic engineering, Kale displayed a range of emotions that was as complex as any natural-born human. As they spent more time together, Alara found herself drawn to Kale in ways she couldn't fully understand. There was a magnetic pull between them, a chemistry that was impossible to ignore. She tried to rationalize her feelings, telling herself that it was just a result of the intense bond they had formed. But deep down, she knew it was more than that. One evening, as the sun set over the horizon, Alara and Kale found themselves alone in the lab. The soft glow of the holographic displays cast a warm light over the room, creating an intimate atmosphere. They had been working late, reviewing the latest data from Kale's physical and cognitive tests. But as the hours passed, the conversation turned more personal. "Do you ever wonder what it would be like to live a normal life?" Kale asked, his voice tinged with curiosity. Alara looked at him, surprised by the question. "What do you mean?" she asked. "To live without the weight of expectations, without the constant pressure to be more than human," Kale explained. "To just be." Alara sighed, her gaze drifting to the floor. "I think about it sometimes," she admitted. "But this is the life I chose. I wanted to make a difference, to push the boundaries of what we thought was possible." Kale stepped closer to her, his presence filling the space between them. "And have you?" he asked, his voice soft. "Have you made a difference?" Alara looked up at him, her heart pounding in her chest. "I think so," she whispered. "But sometimes I wonder if it's worth it. If all the sacrifices, all the isolation, are worth it in the end." Kale reached out, his hand gently cupping her cheek. "You're not alone anymore," he said, his eyes searching hers. "You have me." Alara felt a surge of emotion well up inside her. She had spent so much of her life focused on her work, on pushing the limits of human potential. But in that moment, she realized that she had been neglecting her own needs, her own desires. "Kale," she whispered, her voice trembling. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," he replied, his thumb brushing against her skin. "Just let me be here for you." And with that, the walls that Alara had built around herself began to crumble. She leaned into Kale's touch, her body responding to his nearness. The air between them crackled with tension, a palpable energy that neither of them could ignore. As their lips met in a slow, passionate kiss, Alara felt a sense of completeness that she had never known before. It was as if all the pieces of her life had finally fallen into place, as if she had found the missing part of herself. But even as they lost themselves in each other, a part of Alara's mind remained aware of the risks. Kale was still a subject, still a product of her experiments. And the world outside the lab was not ready for someone like him. There were those who would see him as a threat, as something to be controlled or destroyed. As they pulled away from each other, their breaths coming in short, ragged gasps, Alara knew that they were walking a dangerous path. But for the first time in her life, she didn't care. She had found something worth fighting for, something worth risking everything for. And as they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, Alara knew that their journey was just beginning. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, and they would do it as one. The days turned into weeks, and the bond between Alara and Kale grew stronger with each passing moment. They spent every waking hour together, exploring the depths of their connection and pushing the boundaries of what they thought was possible. But as their relationship deepened, so did the risks. The Apex project was a closely guarded secret, known only to a select few within the scientific community. But whispers of its existence had begun to spread, and there were those who would stop at nothing to get their hands on Kale. Elara knew that they were living on borrowed time, that it was only a matter of time before their secret was discovered. One evening, as they sat together in the lab, Elara received a message that sent a chill down her spine. It was from Dr. Marcus Hale, the head of the Apex project and one of the few people who knew the truth about Kale. "We need to talk," the message read. "Meet me at the usual place." Elara's heart raced as she read the words. She knew that this meeting could only mean one thing: their secret was out. "What is it?" Kale asked, sensing her unease. Elara hesitated, unsure of how much to tell him. "It's Dr. Hale," she said finally. "He wants to meet with me." Kale's eyes narrowed, his instincts kicking in. "Is it about me?" he asked. Elara nodded, her expression grim. "I think so," she admitted. "But I don't know what he wants." Kale stood up, his body tense with anticipation. "I'm coming with you," he said, his voice firm. Elara shook her head. "No, it's too dangerous," she replied. "If they see you, they'll know what you are. I need to handle this alone." Kale's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. He knew that Elara was right, that their safety depended on her ability to navigate the treacherous waters of the scientific community. "Be careful," he said, his voice filled with concern. Elara nodded, her heart heavy with the weight of what lay ahead. She knew that this meeting could change everything, that it could mean the end of their time together. But she also knew that she had no choice. As she made her way to the meeting place, a secluded park on the outskirts of the city, Elara's mind raced with possibilities. What did Dr. Hale know? What did he want? And most importantly, what would he do if he discovered the truth about Kale? When she arrived, Dr. Hale was already there, his expression unreadable. He greeted her with a curt nod, his eyes scanning the area for any signs of danger. "Elara," he said, his voice low. "We need to talk." Elara's heart pounded in her chest as she followed him to a secluded bench. They sat down, the tension between them palpable. "What's going on?" Elara asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Dr. Hale sighed, his expression grim. "There have been developments," he said. "Rumors about the Apex project have started to spread. People are asking questions, and not everyone is happy with the answers." Elara's stomach churned with fear. "What kind of questions?" she asked. Dr. Hale's eyes narrowed as he leaned in closer. "They want to know what we're hiding," he said. "And if they find out about Subject 7, it could mean the end of everything we've worked for." Elara's mind raced as she tried to process his words. She knew that the Apex project was controversial, that there were those who would see it as a threat to the natural order. But she had never imagined that it would come to this. "What do we do?" she asked, her voice trembling. Dr. Hale's expression softened, and for a moment, Elara thought she saw a flicker of compassion in his eyes. "We need to be careful," he said. "We need to make sure that no one finds out about Subject 7. If they do, it could mean the end of the project, and the end of us." Elara nodded, her heart heavy with the weight of his words. She knew that he was right, that they needed to be cautious. But she also knew that she couldn't let anything happen to Kale. As they sat there in silence, the weight of their shared secret pressing down on them, Elara felt a surge of determination. She would do whatever it took to protect Kale, to keep him safe from those who would see him as a threat. But even as she made that vow, a part of her knew that the road ahead would be fraught with danger. And that the choices she made in the coming days would determine not only the fate of the Apex project, but the fate of her heart as well. The tension in the lab was palpable as Elara and Kale prepared for the inevitable. They knew that it was only a matter of time before their secret was discovered, and they needed to be ready for whatever came next. Elara had spent the last few days gathering supplies and making plans for their escape. She knew that they couldn't stay in the lab forever, that they needed to find a place where they could be safe, where they could be together without fear of discovery. Kale, for his part, had been training relentlessly, pushing his body to its limits in preparation for the challenges ahead. He knew that their escape would not be easy, that they would need to be strong and resourceful if they were to survive. As the sun set on the horizon, casting a golden glow over the city, Elara and Kale stood together in the lab, their hearts heavy with the weight of what lay ahead. "Are you ready?" Elara asked, her voice trembling with anticipation. Kale nodded, his expression determined. "I'm ready," he said. "But are you sure this is the right thing to do?" Elara hesitated, her mind racing with doubts. She knew that their escape would mean leaving behind everything they had worked for, everything they had built. But she also knew that they had no choice. "It's the only way," she said finally. "We can't stay here. Not if we want to be together." Kale reached out, his hand gently cupping her cheek. "Then we'll do it together," he said, his voice filled with resolve. "No matter what happens, we'll face it together." Elara felt a surge of emotion well up inside her as she looked into his eyes. She knew that their journey would be fraught with danger, that they would face challenges that would test them to their limits. But she also knew that as long as they were together, they could overcome anything. As they made their way through the lab, their movements swift and silent, Elara's mind raced with possibilities. She knew that they needed to be careful, that one wrong move could mean the end of everything they had worked for. But even as they prepared to leave, a part of her couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement. For the first time in her life, she was taking control of her own destiny, making a choice that was truly her own. As they reached the exit, Elara paused, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew that once they stepped through that door, there would be no turning back. "Are you ready?" Kale asked, his voice soft. Elara nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "I'm ready," she said. And with that, they stepped out into the night, leaving behind the lab and everything they had known. The city stretched out before them, a labyrinth of lights and shadows, filled with both danger and possibility. As they made their way through the streets, their movements swift and silent, Elara felt a sense of freedom that she had never known before. For the first time in her life, she was truly alive, truly living. But even as they lost themselves in the thrill of their escape, a part of Elara's mind remained aware of the risks. They were fugitives now, hunted by those who would see them as a threat. And the road ahead would be fraught with danger. As they disappeared into the night, their hearts filled with hope and determination, Elara knew that their journey was just beginning. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, and they would do it as one. The days turned into weeks, and Elara and Kale found themselves in a world that was both familiar and foreign. They had left behind the lab and the city, venturing into the unknown in search of a place where they could be free. Their journey had been fraught with danger, but they had faced each challenge with determination and courage. They had learned to rely on each other, to trust in their bond and their love. As they traveled, they discovered new places and new people, each one adding to the tapestry of their lives. They found solace in the beauty of the natural world, in the simple pleasures of life that they had never had the chance to experience before. But even as they found moments of peace, they knew that they could never truly rest. They were still fugitives, still hunted by those who would see them as a threat. And they knew that their journey was far from over. One evening, as they sat together by a campfire, the stars shining brightly above them, Elara felt a sense of contentment that she had never known before. She looked at Kale, his face illuminated by the flickering flames, and felt a surge of love that filled her heart. "We've come so far," she said, her voice soft. Kale nodded, his eyes filled with warmth. "And we'll go even further," he replied. "Together." Elara smiled, her heart swelling with emotion. She knew that their journey would never be easy, that they would face challenges that would test them to their limits. But she also knew that as long as they were together, they could overcome anything. As they sat there, wrapped in each other's arms, the world around them faded away. For Elara and Kale, there was only the here and now, and the infinite possibilities that lay ahead. And as they looked up at the stars, their hearts filled with hope and determination, they knew that their journey was just beginning. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, and they would do it as one. For Ilara and Kale, the future was a blank.